Today on Travels with Bill, we're exploring the community of Fork River. We'll spend some time looking at the history and see how the community looks today. So stick around. A lot of what we're talking about and seeing today comes from the Memories of the Past history book. It's available online or in print and is well worth the read. We're coming in from the north, and the first thing we see is the St. John the Baptist Ukrainian Catholic Church. We have a full episode on that church. You'll find a link down below to see it all. On the right-hand side of the screen stands the Fork River elevator, but it wasn't always that way. It used to have some brothers and sisters too. One of the three elevators in Fork River was the Northern Elevator Company. It was built in 1913, merged into National Grain in 1940, and sold to Cargill in 1975. It closed forever in 1976. In 1923, the Brooks Elevator Company built the next giant in the row of three. It became a federal grain elevator in 1929. Manitoba Pool took over in 1972 and called it their B elevator. It was closed in 1975, but it's the third elevator that still stands today. It was built by Manitoba Pool in 1950. The next year, they added an annex, but that annex was removed in 1985 when 4 steel bins were added. The elevator closed in 2001, but it has found use as a private grain storage elevator. It certainly looks to be in great shape, and it's so very nice to see an elevator on the horizon as you approach Fork River. Hopefully it stays put for a very long time to come. The first people here were the Cree, who lived in birch bark shelters along the Mossy River. The area was originally called Minokan, which means good growth. The first homesteaders here were in 1896, and the railway followed the next year in 1897. It was a connection between Dauphin and Winnipegosis. The railway called its siding Fork River, and settlers were forced to accept the new name for their settlement. It was 1910 when the Mossy River Council started talking about building a road from Fork River to Winnipegosis. As we fly over the downtown, you can see that little building coming up with a flag. Well, that, of course, is the Fork River Post Office. It's a hub of activity in the town today. You'll find all sorts of people dropping by to say hello. And, of course, you'll also find a very friendly postmistress. Would you believe she's been there since May 25th, 1976? Post office has moved around a lot over the years, but in 1964, this permanent location was built and has been here ever since. We'll keep flying through the downtown, then we'll turn around and come back. Certainly when you talk about Fork River, one of the things that keeps coming up is fire. It's been a problem here. In fact, the first grain elevator built burned to the ground and had to be replaced. The B&B Grocery and Lunch burned down on February 5th, 1966. That fire due to an electrical issue, the business totally destroyed. And even before that, Harrison's hardware store burned down. That's notable because of what was saved. By that time, the town had acquired a fire pump, and it was stored in the hardware store. Trouble was, it never seemed to work quite right. Even if you could get it started, you usually couldn't get it primed. So when Mike Harrison's store was on fire, the only thing saved was the pump they were using to try to put out the flames. Well, it was certainly time for a fire truck, and over the years, the Fork River Fire Department has had many trucks. It was 1990 when they built their new fire hall, and in 1992, they got a truck from the Brandon Fire Department. That used truck is painted lime green. When they built that new fire hall in 1990, certainly the community was thinking, hey, we're finally done with this fire thing. Well, unfortunately, nothing likely prepared them for what was to come. Don't you find the community here beautiful? Look at how the river runs through it, the trees, the roads. It's a wonderful place to visit. I admit I didn't spend a lot of time in Fork River until I was invited to town to do the video on the church. But then once I was here, how could you not do a video on the whole community? Because it's such a great place. Well, we're coming up on the old school grounds here, and that's worth talking about too. Sadly, you won't find this building in Fork River anymore, but years ago you could. In fact, here's where the school used to sit, and all that's left now are some foundations. The marker at the site tells us the first school built in 1899, a mile and a half north of Fork River. Over the years, about 5,000 students attended the area's 18 schools. Most of those schools were closed in 1967 and consolidated. The Fork River School was at this site and remained open until 1981. After that, students began being bused to Winnipegosis. You can certainly see the community loves its history. They've erected a nice plaque to help remember what used to be. The school is one thing that didn't burn down, it was torn down, but probably the biggest fire loss in recent memory is the curling rink. Fire destroyed the building on April 20th, 1991. At that time, no one knew if it would be replaced, but a temporary shelter was built that fall, and by the next year, work on a brand new building was underway. That's what we're looking at down below. Have you subscribed to Travels with Bill yet? We've certainly got lots more to come about Fork River, but why not hit that subscribe button while we're looking at the town? You can even click the thumbs up, and you'll make sure to see every episode as we travel around Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and all of Canada, showing you some of the coolest places around. Of course, on Travels with Bill, you know I love my train stories, so as we look at the right-of-way where the track used to be, I'm going to read you a train story. It's called The Last Whistle. As I approached the town of Fork River on May 15th at 3:10 p.m., in the distance I could see a bright light approaching. As we came closer to town, 2 engines coming from the south could be seen. As my husband and I talked, we both had the same thing in mind. I bet this will be the last train coming here. The first thing was on my mind, I have to take some pictures. As I went back and forth to get a camera and take some pictures, chills went up my spine. As I stood watching the engines go back and forth switching tracks, the 1896 steel track screeched as the wheels of the train and the track met. I was fortunate enough to meet with engineer Tom Monson, conductor Rick Horn, and brakeman Adrian Clement. As engines 1608 and 1601 came to our town, the train also sadly left at 3:45 p.m., pulling its 14 grain cars behind. The whistle tooted, and a graceful hand waved goodbye. We will miss that whistle. We're walking along the right-of-way to where this bridge used to stand back before the track was removed. It's gone now, but you can still see clearly where the bridge used to be, right across the Fork River. You know, that story about the train was written by Pearl. I know her and her husband. In fact, her husband John was before IT, one of the ham radio guys I used to hang around with. Perhaps one day we'll have to spend a little time talking about ham radio and show you how that works as well. For now, though, there used to be a bridge right here, and like the train, it's gone too. Before we get back to the main tour, I had to show you this shot. I actually was back later on after we filmed the main part of the episode, and it was fall time. The trees were changing color, and it looked so beautiful. I had to stop and just show you exactly what it looked like because it's so amazing. Obviously, we're just a touch south of Fork River. You can see it off in the distance there, but doesn't it look so cool how the leaves are changing color? Well, you know, if you're stuck in the city, it's not a very far drive from Dauphin up to Fork River to take a peek at this in the fall and see just how amazing it can look. Right south of the bridge, you'll find a little gravel road, and it's the proverbial gravel road you'd expect from the movies. In fact, it's a no-through road, if you remember that from Follow That Bird. Well, of course, right beside the road is the main highway. You can just pull off here and enjoy the trees if you want for a minute, or you can take a peek at the river, do whatever you like. But visiting Fork River, certainly something cool to do. Fork River is north of the city of Dauphin, sort of on the way up to Winnipegos. You're on Manitoba Highway 20 here. When you do go shopping, folks from here would go down to Dauphin. There you'll find a Walmart and a variety of other stores. There's still lots to do in Winnipegos. Fork River itself, though, is kind of limited now. You've got that community center and, of course, the post office, but there isn't a lot of other services to be found here. We're going to get back to our tour of Fork River from the air. Now, when we film these, quite often we have a lot more footage than maybe we have things to tell you about a community, and that's the case in Fork River. So rather than cutting it off, and you may be missing your house or your farm off in the distance, we're going to show you the rest of the drone flight all over Fork River here. We'll just kind of spin around and take a look at the community. While you do that, you can think about watching another episode of Travels with Bill. You'll find tons of them on the channel, including one about that church just by the elevator there. It's very worthwhile watching. You'll find out so much about the church and what they're doing to save it, to make sure the church remains in Fork River. Us coming to Fork River was suggested by a viewer, and you can make suggestions too. If you know of a place we should be going on Travels with Bill, why not leave a comment down below, and we'll see if maybe we show up at your favorite location too. For now, at least, we continue touring the downtown area of Fork River. Farewell for now from this beautiful part of Manitoba. We'll see you next time on Travels with Bill.